We're back.
We're back.
We're going to talk about something interesting today,
Okay.
and it's why you're buying in today's real estate market. And I think this is relevant and important because a lot of the people that we encounter, investors, people that are seasoned investors, and some of them only have a couple properties, let's say, they keep talking about the market rates and why they're not buying or they're on pause. But you're actively buying in this real estate market. And so I would like to know what your take is on the current real estate market of Southern California, specifically Los Angeles County surrounding. And why are you actively buying?
Okay, well, let me preface by saying that I'm actively buying, but I am being much more cautious than I had been in the past. And that's because of the recent changes in all kinds of regulations and laws and so forth. Okay? But opportunities are still there because there are people that want to get out of the market, there are people that want to sell, there are people that don't want to buy anymore. So all this turmoil creates opportunities for the people like you and me that are on the streets looking for deals. Okay? And a deal to me is someone that we can get a decent price and both parties can live with it. You know, I'm not trying to crush to death the person that's selling. That's not my intent. I don't want to walk away thinking that I have destroyed somebody. Okay? Maybe it's naive, okay? But that's the way I operate. And because of that energy that we let out, we have deals coming toward us. But for example, you know, there's some things that I have learned along the way that nobody taught me. I just learned it. You learn to use the system in your favor. For example, right now I would be looking at a variable interest rate. Why a variable interest rate? Because they start at 3%, 3.5%, 4%, and they have a cap at 9%. Okay? Okay, but the transition from 4% to whatever occurs in, let's say, 3 years. So you sell the property before the 3 years are up, okay? Or you take on that loan because you have the funds to pay off that loan before the transition is up. So in a market that's at 6%, 7%, you end up with a variable that's at 3 or 3.5 or whatever, okay? But you discipline yourself to make sure that it's not going to hurt you in the future. Like I remember one time, I didn't need to buy the property. I wanted to buy this property. I took a variable loan, okay, that was at a ridiculously low interest rate. And then in 2 years, it was going to upgrade to two additional percentage points. So prior to the 2 years, I went to another property that I owned. I refinanced that property, pulled that cash out, paid off this particular loan before it hit the upset. And, you know, I'm in a market where the rates are much, much higher, but you're in a position where you're able to, you know, play the market in your favor. And so to buy in today's market, all you have to do is get a little bit creative, you know, get a little bit creative. And if you're dealing with the owners, sometimes these owners just want to get out. Sometimes somebody has passed away, the heirs are in another state or
Right.
even in another country, which we're seeing in a couple of our things right now. They don't want to know anything about it. They just want to sell. And, you know, if you have a motivated seller, okay, you can still get good deals out there. You know, you can still get decent deals out there. So that's why I continue to search. And I think there's opportunities all the time because you use the market in your favor. You understand?
Yeah, because the people that are saying, oh no, the prices are way inflated, they're too high, so they're actually no longer looking anymore. So when there is, let's say, a decent deal, one maybe worth investing in, they're not going to catch it because they're not actively searching.
I agree with that.
Yeah, because what we've seen is that those deals, even though they are let's say, not as common right now. Good deals, they don't wait. So the person that is actively looking and ready to pounce on it is gonna get it before anybody else.
That's right.
Now, the last purchases that you've made have been commercial real estate. Why commercial versus, let's say, residential?
Okay, that's interesting. You know, for some reason, a higher power, okay, not me. My first real estate purchase, other than my own home, which was a very, very small and humble home at that time, was a commercial building, a small one, but yet it was commercial. And so I was able to negotiate with the owner, and I'm talking about, we just sold that one, right? I bought that, 38 years ago? Something like that. And we just sold it a couple of years ago, okay? Or
this year. It was this year.
We sold it at the beginning of this year. Okay. So I kept it that long, okay? And for some reason, Mike, I got introduced to that commercial real estate, and I didn't find it that difficult. It is definitely a different monster, let's say, or a different way of doing business than doing residential. No doubt about it, okay? You have to be a little bit more acute to some of the stuff that's going on, including usage and from city, and so there's more to it than to the residential. But anybody can do it. All you have to do is sit down and book it up, read.
But why have your last purchases specifically been commercial?
I think that the word is out that we buy commercial, and so some deals come to us. Well, the last deal that we did, you had been in contact with that gentleman for over a year, correct? And so commercial real estate, it's a little bit less regulated, let's say, than the residential and multiple units. For example, let's say in the city of LA, there's tremendous amount of tenant regulations, and so you have to deal with that. I'm not saying that opportunities don't occur there, but you have to be astute to everything that's happening, because there are ordinances that are being passed continuously that seem to get tighter for the property owners. And so you need to reevaluate the way you've been doing business. You can't look at multiple units in the city of LA today like you did 20 years ago. It's got to be looked at a little bit differently. And so we're out there looking, and I like commercial real estate. So maybe it's also that I'm focusing more in that. I also like 4-unit buildings. And 4 units is something that I've always liked because it's still considered residential. So if you're talking about liquidity, it's easier to pull money out or sell a 4-unit building than a commercial building.
A 5-unit building.
Or a 5-unit building.
Because the loan is different.
The loan is different. The thresholds are higher. The points are higher. It's looked at differently by the banks. And so,
So one thing, going back to one of the first purchases you ever made was a commercial building. It was one that you occupied for your business.
Yes.
And I think that that's really important, because we're encountering people that have been run their own businesses, and they've been renting, where they've been leasing, and they sometimes have the desire to own. And so one of the most favorable types of loans in the commercial side is when you occupy the building that you run your business out of. And so the other day we were talking to a gentleman who's looking to buy a building to occupy his business, and he was saying, it's kind of like the FHA, where first-time home buyers, FHA versus SBA, small business association. So the FHA is for the first time home buyers, but you have to occupy, right? You have to make sure you meet those guidelines. And same thing with like those SBA loans. But there's a lot of creative loans in the commercial space and creative financing, and that's one thing that I find pretty cool.
Well, let me say something real quick.
Uh-huh.
You just hit the nail on the head. Because, so for example, if there are business owners out there and you're renting, get a hold of us. We'll find a building for you. No problem. Okay? So that's what we specialize in. But, so I used to work for a Fortune 500 company in the insurance business. And, you know, every time that I moved locations, I would look at the building and see if it was available for purchase. I moved 3 times and I bought 3 commercial buildings because the benefits of occupying the building with your own business was tremendous.
For a bank, like from the bank standpoint?
Yes.
It was easier to get a loan like that.
Absolutely. You're occupying the building, so the bank back then and even now, would look at it as being lower risk because you're occupying the building yourself and your business. Of course, you have to you have to show the bank years of revenue and so forth, right? You have to clear their underwriting guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
But that was easier in the past. And we took advantage of that because it provided financing. It provided money I didn't have, and it allowed to continue to invest and grow. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The guidelines are a little tighter now, but it still can be done. It still can be done. And then when we have a very small portfolio, but we still can use leverage. Like what I just told you. If I get a variable note that has a prepayment penalty for 1 year, but the threshold doesn't change on the interest rate for 3 years, I'll keep it for 3 years. I'll refinance one of my other properties, pull the money out, pay this one off, and continue with a low interest. So, when people say interest rates are high and so forth, yes, they are. And if you're starting out, you may need to, get hit with that as you continue to move forward. But there's always opportunities. You just have to find a way. And if you look, if you seek,
Mm-hmm.
you will find.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed with some investors is that they don't really care too much about the interest rate. They're always doing deals. I know that they factor it in, but it's factored in, so they have a formula. And if it meets their formula and they can purchase at a specific price, then as long as the numbers work, even though the interest rates are where they are. I mean, I did a specific deal with a partner where, it was a short-term loan on these units, and it was a high interest rate. I remember I think it was close to 10%, interest. And it was short term, so that's seen as that's a pretty high interest rate. But
For sure.
But they know their numbers, and I was learning a lot in that specific deal, and they make it work. You have to buy at a specific price to make that interest rate work. Another thing is that when you use specific lenders and they can trust that you're a seasoned investor, they're going to give you a different interest rate than the guy who's doing a flip for the first time or purchasing for the maybe a riskier investment for the first time. We've seen that too. When you look at a new commercial deal, let's say a new deal that's put in front of you, commercial, it could be units, but let's say an office space or like a retail or a mixed use, how do you know if it's actually a good deal? How do you determine that?
So that's a good point because we talk to a lot of people that are telling us, the interest rates are very high. So that automatically is discouraging many people from investing. But just like you said, even if the interests are high, but the numbers make sense, are you going to sit back and wait for the market to change? Like, for example, I was talking to a guy last week, where he's saying, well, I'm not buying because inventory is growing, and as inventory continues to grow, the prices are going to drop. And now they're saying that the Feds are are going to be cutting rates. So you got the best of both worlds. You have high inventory and the rates are going to come down. So I'm just going to sit back and wait. Okay, that's fine. I respect that decision from that gentleman. And he is an investor, a seasoned investor. He's been investing in real estate for a long time. But if an opportunity comes up and the numbers make sense, are you going to wait? Or are you take advantage of that opportunity? If you let that go by, there'll be somebody else that will take advantage of that opportunity. And remember, it all depends on where you find yourself, because if the rates are at 6%, but you're able to put $500,000 down payment on an $800,000 deal because it's worth $1 million, but they want to get out and they want to sell it for $8, just an assumption, you put $500,000 down, now you're financing very little at 6%. And the minute that drops, you have so much equity in that property, you can go for it again. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying that's an example. So the way we look at property, we'll turn around and expense out like 35%. Mm-hmm. And after that, if there's enough money left over to cover, to have a decent, revenue, then you really have to sit down and really think about pulling the trigger and going for it.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff you have to do. You have to do an inspection, use a good company to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the property, like the roof, the plumbing. If it's near a gas station or whatever, you need to do an environmental. So there are a lot of factors that come into play. Mm-hmm. However, just looking at the numbers will give you an idea. Right. I'm willing to take the next step.
So you look at what the income is that the property can generate or is actively generating. If let's say some of the units are vacant, if it's multiple commercial units, then you got to think about renting those out. What could you rent them out? How do you determine what that price per square foot is that you can rent them out? All of those things have to be calculated. But let's say it's a fully rented building and you can calculate, okay, it's bringing in this amount in income. Let's just say $100,000 in income. You'll take away around 35% roughly, just to say, okay, expenses, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, whatever the case, management fees, somewhere around 35%. So you're left with $65,000 a year that it's bringing in. And then based on that, you figure out, is that what price do you pay for it to get $65,000 in net operating income?
Yes.
Net of expenses. Now, some people are really seem married to like a cap rate in the commercial world or in the investment world. I remember when I was listening to a lot more of Grant Cardone years ago, he would talk about a 6 cap. Everything was a 6% cap, 6% return. So for those who don't know, a cap rate in the real estate investment world is it's a rate of return. So if you pay $1 million and you get a 6% cap rate, that means that it's giving you $60,000 a year. That would be net, right?
Yes.
Yeah, net. $60,000 a year net. So I remember analyzing a bunch of deals when I first got into real estate. It was very difficult to find a 6% cap.
For sure. If you find a 6% cap now, consider yourself, you hit the lotto. Bingo.
Now, I know it matters where you're looking at, because there are some areas that, let's say, are not as sought after. They're going to have higher cap rates. What I'm noticing is that in Southern California, in the nicer the area, usually the lower the cap rate, the lower the return.
So you bring up a very good point, because look, I am now 66. My philosophy in investing when I was in my 30s is totally different than what my philosophy is today. So I'm 66. Thank God I'm still healthy. But how long do I have left? Okay. So I need to make my money when I buy the property. Because you brought up, okay, you got a property, it's got 3 units empty, you can rent those out, this and that. I don't care about that any longer.
What do you mean you don't care?
I'm not going to look at that as future growth. I'm going to look at the numbers that the property is generating today. Okay? I may, give it a tinge of upgrade because I know that I can rent those other. But if you're going to rent those others, why are those empty? Is it because they have to be upgraded? You have to put $10,000 into every unit. So I need to make my money today when I buy the property. So the numbers that the property is reflecting is the ones that I look at. I don't look at a pro forma if everything's rented, or I don't look at something's, because I'm 66 years old. Okay?
And pro forma is what the rents would be at market if it was, let's say, fixed up the unit and then rented out again. But it's not what the current rents are based on the tenant that's there right now.
Right. So the 30-year-old Pablo would have bought it without blinking an eye, because I know that I'm going to rent these and whatever, although nothing in life is guaranteed. You're 30, you can be gone at 31. But the 60-year-old Pablo is not looking at that. I'm looking at making the money right now when I buy it. And if that deal cannot be done this way, then I will walk away. So what happens when I walk away? Here comes the 30-year-old Michael that's willing to take that risk that the 66-year-old Pablo is not willing to take. Mm-hmm. And why? Because you're younger, it's time to build, and you're going for it, right? I want something different. So I will let that deal, which is a good deal, go away just because, I'm not interested in all the stuff that I have to do. And don't get me wrong, I look at things all the time, and I kind of, but your risk tolerance changes a little bit with time. I'm married to my wife, and her risk tolerance is a lot lower than mine, and so there are many factors that come into play. But that's how opportunity is created for many people out there.
And what you're specifically looking for and what you're not looking for. Like if somebody comes to you with a piece of land and says, oh, it's got all these permits, do you want to develop it? From what I know, you probably would pass on something like that.
I would.
and it gives the opportunity to somebody else.
That's right.
But I think it's great that you know what you want and then what you don't want and what you will stay away from at this point in your life.
Yeah.
And what you're looking for, from what it sounds like, is something that's, let's say, an investment that's generating income already and not pie in the sky, pro forma numbers, what it could generate, but what is it currently generating? Can I live with that? Is it a good investment in its current state?
And I think that as investors, we need to stay flexible, okay? Mm-hmm. So, for example, I paid a premium right now on a commercial property that we bought this year. But because I fell in love with the location, I loved the property, and I know that, it would be easy to lease out, and it'll generate income. And I was willing to make this exchange, right, the 1031, into this particular property because I fell in love with that property. It's in a wonderful city, great location. We did a car count, and it's over 12,000 vehicles per day go by there. So any business that's growing, that's young, would love to lease it, And so, 12,000 vehicles a day. There was one that I was looking at the other day. 30,000 vehicles per day go by this particular property. So anyway, am I saying...
There's another investment we're looking at currently that it's got to have 60,000 vehicles go by a day.
It's amazing. You put a huge sign out there and it's free advertising.
It is. However, it's not as good as it's not as good as they call it visibility. You can't. It's very easy to drive by and not see it.
Right.
Even though so many cars drive by it a day.
But there's a few things that can be done to change that. But so you brought up something that's really important. Let me touch on it real quick. And what do I know about nothing? Right?
Well, you're sharing your 66 years of experience.
So Well, I wasn't investing when I was 5. but you learn
No,
by
but
hard knocks. You know, I've been hit a lot of times. You know, I've been hurt. You know, people tell you one thing, they do another. You know, the usual stories, guys. But what was I going to tell you? You said there are some people that are married to the cap rate. Well, you're looking at one. I was. If the cap rate was not at a particular point, I would even look nothing up. I just pass it. And I passed on opportunities. I passed on opportunities because there were a few things that could have been changed easily on the property. And the person that bought them did it. Okay? And made the properties very viable, very, very nice. And it was something that, you know, so anytime that you are so strict and married to something, like a cap rate, you stand to potentially, if you don't dig in and review the entire picture, you might pass on something.
you bring up a very good point that you have to look a little bit deeper. One of the first things we do is we visit the property. So, like one that we're in negotiation with right now, I've probably driven by it and looked at it 10 times. So, same thing with this property you were talking about earlier in the year that you purchased. You fell in love with the property. It's because you went to the property, you had been to the property, you saw it was a very good location. So, those are things that a cap rate won't tell you. A cap rate is purely looking at what are the return, what are you paying for it, what's the net income you're going to generate. But if you visit, you can see maybe potential. Who's the tenant next door? Who's the neighbor? Where is it surrounded by? There's specific businesses that we love to visit, and we know that if this business moves to another city and opens a new location, everything around it is going to flourish because it brings so much clientele. There are businesses like that.
Correct.
So is one of those businesses across the street? You don't know that unless you actually go to that. It brings me to the next topic of why you specifically have not invested out of state recently, or why you don't look at opportunities that are, let's say, out of your specific radius of miles.
Right. And you brought up something really important. We'll drive by the property during daylight, and we'll drive by the property at night. Okay? We want to see what the nightlife is like.
Mm-hmm.
We want to see, you know, what comes out at night around there. You know?
The freaks. There's a song.
You know, a bunch of Halloween, you know. So, you know, you drive by it. I've driven by at 3 a.m, you know, at a property,
Yeah.
because across the street.
3 a.m.
3 a.m, because across the street there was a shift of workers that would come out at 3 a.m, and I wanted to see what that was like, and it was complete havoc. Okay, at 3 a.m, the release of something like 100 or 150 workers coming out.
Wow.
And many of those workers used the driveway of that particular property to do all kinds of stuff. And so
You got to put a gate.
you got to put a gate. And is the gate feasible? So, you know, you drive by night. That was a long time ago, Mike. I'll drive at 10 o'clock at night, 11, you know. But this particular one had a shift of workers that would come out at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that. There was a factory of, I don't remember if it was plastics or something, but they were working 24/7. I don't remember what they were producing. But anyway.
So it's really important to go visit the
I
location.
think so. And if you're buying out of state, it makes it more difficult. And I know I have friends that have criticized me. Oh, my God. You are missing out on price. You're missing out on gains. You're missing out on this. And, you know, I'm okay with all of that because I have peace of mind. Even doing all the things that I'm doing, blank happens. Things happen.
Of course.
Okay? So, you know, anyway.
Now, you have insurance agencies. You've been investing in real estate for 30-something years, right? Why did you choose real estate as your main, let's say, investment vehicle? Because we know there's stocks, retirement accounts. You were in life insurance. There's life insurance accounts. I mean, why did you choose real estate?
Well, I lost a few bucks in the stock market.
Okay.
Okay. And real estate, you can see it, you can touch it. I can get a crew in there and modify it. And I remember in high school, back when God created the heavens and the earth, I remember reading about a lot of the wealthy people back then. And granted, a lot of things have changed and continue to change, but a lot of the wealthy people made their money, their wealth came through real estate. And, my upbringing has something to do with it. We got kicked out of Cuba by Fidel Castro. He took everything that my parents had. And so coming here, my dad and also my uncle, but my dad said, hey, you can buy real estate in this country. There's no Fidel Castro here to take it away from you. So, I grew up with that mentality. And so I, geared towards real estate investment more. I did try stocks a little bit and this and that, and I lost. And I opened up a food restaurant and I lost. So every time I, varied out of my lane, which was insurance, that's what I was mainly in, and then investing in real estate. Every time I veered off that, I got hit with a semi truck.
Even some real estate deals you talk about, you've lost money
in.
Yeah. One thing your mom, my grandma, always talked about was she was so proud that she had bought a piece of land in Cuba.
Right.
And then when she got married to your dad, my grandpa, they built a house. They actually built a house in Cuba. And so she was so proud of that. I remember.
Yeah. Well, it was very difficult to do over there, and she was able to save a lot of money because she worked for a wealthy family, very, very wealthy family in the island, and she got to travel all over the world.
Yeah. She was so proud of the house she built.
Yeah.
Which, when you guys left, you couldn't sell it. You couldn't take anything.
No, it was confiscated by the government.
So I think that was her.
And everything in it.
And I remember also her being so proud about. I remember the number. Correct me if I'm wrong. 6 years of being in this country, they were able to buy a house.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
She was so proud of that because they worked very hard.
Yeah.
Your dad, and all saved up to be able to buy a house, and that meant a lot to them.
It did,
because it had been taken from them, and I wonder if that's part of your.
Oh, sure is.
Like it's ingrained in you.
Sure is. We were refugees in Europe, and we didn't have a dime to, do anything on. So it was difficult.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. And we had, we would go to a what do you call it? A common eatery. They would serve you food for free, and you had to go there to maintain your visa status. And if you didn't go, I don't remember. I was a kid, but you got in trouble. I don't know if they kicked you out or something, or it interrupted.
What was that called?
It was like a, where all the refugee people would go there to eat. And it was like an eatery, like a common free place, and there were lines that were long, and we would go there so that we could maintain also our visa status. There was a way we were in Spain, so they would check up on us by us coming there. We needed to sign a little card. My mom was, I was only 8 or so, but I remember, and they weren't all that nice. You just had to put up with some stuff and continue moving forward.
Until you got to the promised land.
Till I got to the United States.
Yeah, because when your parents got here and you guys got here, it was the promised land. I mean, you have been gone through
a lot. They went through a lot.
As I would imagine, many people who come to this country have gone through a lot of things. A lot. But you chose real estate. Or real estate chose you, and it's working well for you?
It's working well for me, yeah.
Okay, good.
I cannot. Look, You're talking to somebody that is extremely grateful
Yeah.
of life and of this country. I know a lot of people. Look, we're not perfect, okay? But I mean, I've traveled the world and I've seen some places, and I'm here to tell you that even though this country has a few things that could be changed, but let me tell you, who knows how to do it and how complex things are. And the
Yeah.
United States of America, to us, and I think that anybody that comes to the U.S. and works hard and learns every day something, and you have that discipline, you will move forward.
You get ahead.
You will move forward.
Well, one of the things from my perspective, I'm 35, and I see people that are in their 60s, 70s, and everybody, or many of them, seem to be slowing down. You're actively, that's why I thought this was really important, because you're actively in buying real estate. And a lot of the people that we talk to, even younger than you, are in the phase of selling their real estate and getting rid of things. They look at it as a headache. They don't have peace of mind from it for whatever the reason. So they're trying to downsize, and kind of get out of the game. And it's not a criticism to them, but I just look at it as, I think it's great that you're still on the field making moves. You're not on the bench, or it doesn't seem to be slowing down. You want to continue. And
Well, I credit you with a lot of that energy because we're building something together. I've been fortunate that, I made you an offer and you accepted, and so we're business partners. And that, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and I'm on it. If you weren't around, I guarantee you that I would not be as active as I am. I guarantee you, I would not be. My endeavors would be put to some other use. I enjoy this because you are around, and but if you weren't around, I guarantee you I would not be as active in real estate as we are. Because I get up and I'm looking for opportunities all the time, and those opportunities are gonna be shared, and so and we're learning continuously.
Yeah.
I
well,
would not.
I'm glad that
You are the catalyst to this.
I'm glad we're doing this venture together.
Me too. I love it.
Yeah.
But if you weren't around, I would do something that would keep my mind going.
You always have.
But it would not be. Maybe I'd be devoting more time to my insurance business, because there's always a cost, folks. There's only so much time in the day. We all have the same 24 hours. It's what you do with those 24 hours that differentiate the people that do something and the people that don't. I'm not devoting a lot of time to my insurance business. It's kind of like running, not exactly on its own. I do keep an eye on the numbers and things that need to get done, but I put a lot more time into our endeavor in real estate. Way more time.
It's also, you have very good people helping you run the real estate.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, you have very good people helping you run the insurance. So that's a little different. That's an established, built up business with great people. But
they're fantastic, all of them.
Real estate is not. The real estate is, this venture is, the last 5 years almost?
Yeah.
So it's newer. It's a baby that needs more time. That's the way I look at it.
Well, we're going on 6 years. We're going to begin our 6 year. 5 years.
We're going on 5.
We're going on 5?
Yeah,
okay.
we're going on 5. But maybe it feels like long. Well, thank you for sharing your insight on why you're actively in the game. And I got a feeling that as long as you're enjoying what you're doing, you're probably going to continue to be active in the game.
I will. Yeah, you're a big part of it. If you decided to quit tomorrow, it would definitely throw a curve at me. And so I would reconsider at that point. I would probably slow down a little bit. But yeah, I like it. And so if you're enjoying it, That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.